If everything had gone according to Hitler's plans, we'd be living in a totally different world right now. Hitler's policies and his deep racism caused unimaginable suffering. The Nazi regime was responsible for killing 19.3 million civilians and prisoners of war. On top of that, 28.7 million soldiers and civilians lost their lives in military operations across Europe during World War II. Just thinking about a world where Hitler won and the Nazis ruled it is enough to make anyone shudder. But in order to win, Germany had to avoid some huge mistakes. First, they should have waited until after winter to invade the Soviet Union. Hitler was fighting on two fronts, against both Russia and Britain, which stretched his forces too thin. His main focus should have been Britain, which was on the brink of collapsing. If Germany hadn't split its forces, they could have taken Britain down. A focused air assault on Britain could have sealed the deal. Only after defeating Britain should Hitler have turned his attention to Russia to make sure the victory was on his terms. The second big mistake was declaring war on America. With the distance and resources America had, defeating them was pretty much impossible. Instead, Hitler could have tried to strike a peace deal where the US stayed out of the fight, leaving Germany free to dominate Europe. Of course, such a deal was unlikely unless America had something to gain from staying neutral. In this alternate reality, after taking care of America and conquering Europe, Hitler could have teamed up with Mussolini and rewarded Italy with territories. But the real power would always stay with Hitler. The Soviet and British forces would have been crushed, and Hitler's grand plans could have unfolded. Now, let's rewind and break this down step by step. In 1939, Germany launched a blitzkrieg into Poland, quickly taking control. France and Britain declared war on Germany. Confident that they had a non-aggression pact with the Soviet Union, the Nazis kept pushing forward in Europe. A year into the war, France surrendered. By this point, Britain was the only country left really fighting back against Germany's rule. Meanwhile, Italy and Japan were expanding their empires. By 1941, after constant German attacks, Britain fell and was occupied. The Soviet Union, trying to invade Finland, caused Hitler to break their non-aggression pact and declare war on them. America stayed out of it, and Germany launched Operation Barbarossa, attacking the Soviet Union alongside Italy on two fronts. At the same time, Hitler signed a peace treaty with the US, guaranteeing that they wouldn't interfere with American interests. As the Soviets fought back, Japan attacked from the east. After 3 years of brutal fighting and millions of casualties, the Soviet Union finally fell. You know what happened to Stalin, right? Stalin was tried and executed. In a meeting, Hitler, Mussolini, and Hirohito split up the conquered lands. The world was now divided into 3 major zones. Germany controlled Europe and Africa, Japan ruled Asia and parts of the former Soviet Union, and the United States controlled the Western Hemisphere. Europe was drastically changed. France, Britain, and the Soviet Union were under Nazi control. Society became racially divided, with Aryans enjoying special privileges, while Slavs and Jews were enslaved or exterminated in labor camps. The dream of a Jewish state was wiped out, and Israel never existed. German became the official language of Europe. Criticizing Adolf Hitler, the supreme leader, was punishable by life imprisonment or execution. Only the Nazi Party could operate, and communism was completely wiped out after the Soviet Union's fall. In Asia, Japan expanded its empire. China, under Mao's communist regime, eventually fell to Japanese forces with help from Germany and Italy. LGBTQ people, Jews, and anyone seen as mentally ill were brutally persecuted under Nazi ideology. By 1950, a Cold War started between Germany and America, despite their earlier peace agreement. Beyond this scenario, many believe that if Hitler had won, he would have developed atomic bombs to wipe out America. Back in Europe, Germany tore up the Treaty of Versailles and took back reparations from occupied countries. Hitler's obsession with Aryan supremacy led to strict measures to keep racial purity, targeting things like prostitution, alcohol, and anything else he saw as moral decay. Germany's economy was booming, and wealth was more evenly spread out.
Soldaten, Männer und Frauen, unser ewiges deutsches Volk, sein Führer des großen Krieges, der Präsident des Deutschen Reiches, General Feldmarschall von Hindenburg, hoch! Hoch! Hoch!
Nazi propaganda, led by Joseph Goebbels, controlled the occupied territories and stopped any communist influence. This prevented things like Cuba's communist revolution, the Soviet-Afghan War, and Cold War conflicts with the USSR. But after years of oppression, underground independence movements started growing in Nazi-controlled territories. In 1981, Hitler's death marked a major shift. Heinrich Himmler took over, continuing the harsh policies but failing to stop the rising resistance. After Himmler took over from Hitler, Nazi Germany's oppressive policies reached a whole new level. Public protests, which had been buried for years under fear and censorship, slowly started to rise across the vast Nazi empire. From Eastern Europe to the Middle East and North Africa, underground resistance movements began forming. By the 1990s, things were falling apart. Economic shortages, massive uprisings, and deep divisions within the Nazi leadership started shaking the empire's foundations. The biggest rebellions were in the former Soviet territories, where the people, even after decades of oppression, kept their spirit of resistance alive. Uprisings in cities like Moscow and St. Petersburg sparked a chain reaction of revolts throughout the empire. The once unstoppable German military, weakened by years of fighting and a lack of manpower, started falling apart. Finally, in 2005, a massive resistance effort from Eastern Europe to Africa brought Berlin down. The fall of Berlin marked the official end of the Nazi Empire, with more and more conquered nations declaring their independence. But even after the Nazis fell, the dark legacy of that time didn't just vanish. The cultural damage, the destruction of global infrastructure, and the deep psychological scars left on the generations who lived under constant fear and oppression stayed with the world for a long time.
16.000 Großbrände vernichten 12.500 Gebäude. Fast die Hälfte der Münchner Bausubstanz wurde zerstört.
That's where this video ends, but stay tuned for part 2, where we'll dive into what plans the Nazis had in mind if they actually won the war.
Und das Schönste ist es für mich, der ich weiß, dass dieses wunderbare Regiment des deutschen Volkes und unserer Bewegung meinen Namen trägt. Halt!
Hitler truly believed victory was inevitable. The Nazis didn't just stumble into World War II by accident. They were determined to build a new world order. Their plans for a global fascist empire were chillingly detailed. For example, one of their terrifying ideas was to build the world's largest mirror in space. Using solar energy and its reflection, they planned to wipe out any enemy on Earth with a single strike. Creepy, right?
I hope you enjoy watching this video. Untold stories from history and the challenges humanity faces in today's world are some of the topics we explore on this channel. Stay with us and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.
Don't miss part 2.